6 reasons to hire a motorcycle accident trial lawyer if you've been injured in a motorcycle accident. So I'm going to give you the 6 reasons that formulate my opinion that everyone that has been in a motorcycle accident really does need to have an attorney. This is one of 2 accident type cases where that's always my advice. You should have an attorney. And the reason for that is the very first tip I can give you, which is the most important one. I'm going to give you that now, and then I want you to watch to the end because I'm going to give you the other 2 of the 6 that are the most important reasons why you need an attorney. So that first one, most important, is because you need to know that a motorcycle accident case is totally different from a car accident case. They're not the same. A lot of people think, well, it's an accident, so it's just like being rear-ended in a 2 4-wheel vehicle type wreck. No, it is not. And the reason is for these 5 other tips and reasons I'm going to give you. So realize that is that from the very beginning, a motorcycle accident is not the same thing as a normal car accident case. Another big reason is insurance. Attorneys can find all available insurance. And in motorcycle accidents, the reason why tip number 1 is so important is insurance is so different in motorcycle accidents. Why? Well, a lot of you probably have already dealt with this. When you go to get insurance on your bike, most insurance companies now force you to have a separate motorcycle accident policy versus the policy that you have on your traditional 4-wheel vehicles. So oftentimes I hear bikers tell me, well, look, I've got State Farm on my truck and my wife's vehicle, my kid's vehicle, that's all under State Farm. But then I've got either a separate State Farm policy for motorcycle, or they didn't want to cover it, and I went to Geico, and I have Geico for my motorcycle. So that's really important. Why? Because what ends up happening is these are bigger injury cases, which we'll talk about in a minute, and insurance is so important in finding all available policies. I have had so many cases, catastrophic motorcycle wreck cases, where the at-fault party only has $25,000 of coverage, which is the state minimum in Georgia. $25,000 for the entire case. I have had wrongful death motorcycle wreck cases where there's only $25,000 of coverage from the at-fault party. That's it. This is all about insurance, and that's all that's available. Well, there better be coverage, is what it's called, uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, and plenty of it from multiple sources. So insurance becomes a big, big factor. Attorneys know where to look. Let me give you a really good crazy example. This is probably one that I found the most policies ever. Been doing this almost 20 years in this case, and this gives you the example of how an attorney can dig. My client, it's one of those 25,000 policies by the at-fault party. So there's only 25,000. We need to turn to Well, my client was a worker at the Atlanta airport. And so he was single, and he was living in his parents' home. They were 70 years old, off, retired. They had a camper. They were traveling the world. So son was living in the home. He was 20-something years old. His sister, who was older, she was 30, was living in the home. And this was a house owned by the parents, their primary residence. They just didn't live there often. So we had that scenario. We've got an insurance policy on the motorcycle with Geico. He then had a separate Geico policy for his main 4-wheel vehicle. His sister then also had a vehicle, and she had, I believe, State Farm. Then his parents, they had a 4-wheel vehicle with a different insurance company with coverage on it. And then they also had the camper that they had a separate policy that had coverage on it. So what ends up happening is Georgia has what's called the resident relative statute. If you live with relatives at the time of the wreck by blood or marriage, and they have a separate auto policy, believe it or not, their coverage on that vehicle covers you. It follows you. So what we were able to do was stack a total of, I believe it ended up being 6 different policies. So we turned a only $25,000 at-fault party liability case into, I believe it ended up being $1 million of add-on insurance. So we had $1.25 million available, and he needed all of it. He was very, very injured, missed almost a year of work. He was getting paid really well at the airport. And so he had a ton of losses from this motorcycle wreck. So insurance and being able to see and know all of this, he had no clue. He didn't even know what coverage was. Most people don't. He would have taken the $25,000 from AFOL and gone, well, that's it. I'm just going to have to cover all my other losses. It is what it is. So really, really important. This is a big reason to have an attorney and a trial lawyer. Another one is more practical. The injuries are bigger. But why is that important is what you may not know. So in personal injury cases across the board, but certainly in motorcycle accidents as well, what you get into is the bigger the injuries, the more digging and fighting value-wise the insurance company is going to get into, even with an attorney. Imagine doing it on your own. So my guy, for instance, that I just told you about, he's got a case worth more than $1.25 million because we were able to ultimately get all of those policies to settle. Had he handled it on his own, the insurance company would have pulled out all of their tricks out of their bag to try to settle that way cheaper, and probably would have been successful. I've heard plenty of horror stories, people that reach out to me afterward. Did I do the right thing handling this on my own? And unfortunately, I'm going, gosh, your case was worth so much more. So you can only imagine the tricks that they would have played. Things like, oh, we don't pay the full amount of your medical bills, which is not the law. All of these tricks of the trade to settle with this person cheaper, trying to pay him what sounds like decent money early on. Hey, I'll give you 10 grand. I'll give you 25 grand. I'll give you the policy, to get him to sign on the dotted line before he knew what kind of case he had. Big, big reason to have an attorney, guys. You got to be careful out there. These are often very, very catastrophic injury cases in motorcycle wrecks, more so percentage-wise than in your four-wheel vehicles for obvious reasons. Another tip that injury attorneys can always get you more money for a case than you're going to be able to. And someone had done a statistic across the country, and this is all cases, not just motorcycle, but certainly motorcycle, I think the percentages would probably be higher. And they said with an attorney, the average is 3x the value that you would have been able to get on your own by having an attorney. So just the natural increase in value of having an attorney more than compensates for what you have to pay the attorney in most cases, especially in these motorcycle wreck cases. That's why it's so important to get an attorney, because the value will be there. The business decision on, do I hire a lawyer or not? Are they going to bring the value for what I have to pay them? It's going to be there more times than not in a motorcycle wreck case. So that's the next one. Now, let me give you those two really, really important reasons to hire a motorcycle accident attorney and a trial attorney at that. And these a little bit longer discussion of these, why I'm holding it to the end of the video here. The first one, bias. We're dealing with a motorcycle wreck. You're going to deal with the natural biases that are out there. I've done a separate video on this, so you'll see it, talking about the biases that you're going to face as a motorcycle accident plaintiff. Those are going to be kicking in from day one. The adjuster may not even say them, but it's underlying the value that they are assessing your case at. When you have a lawyer, they should know you're not going to get away with these biases, especially if you have a good motorcycle accident trial lawyer. You got to have someone that tries these cases, that knows these cases. I'm not the only one out there for certain, even in the state of Georgia, much less in the country, but they better have the experience. Again, it's not, remember the first tip, it's not a normal car wreck case. Don't hire a car wreck lawyer. That's all they do, and this is their first motorcycle wreck. No, you got to know for this exact reason. Two big biases that I'll tell you, but watch my other video on it to get the reasons on how we handle all of these biases all the way through trial. The first one is your more typical one. It's the profiling type bias. Motorcycle riders, bikers. Oh, this is a guy wearing leather vests with patches and he's a one percenter. He's a gang member, bad dude, looks bad, has tattoos everywhere, beard, all this stuff, right? That natural, you're a bad dude because you're a motorcycle rider. Bias. That one, clearly easy to deal with, but you're going to face it. The second one's the trickier one, which is they know you're going to ultimately have to try your case to jury of 12 of your peers. but they're not going to be motorcycle peers. They're not going to be fellow riders. They're going to be grandmas and grandpas and, mothers with little kids that have never ridden a bike, don't know anyone who has a motorcycle, who thinks these things are dangerous, that, oh, well, you, in essence, deserve this. You deserve to be injured. You took the risk. You're getting on a motorcycle. How dangerous. That's not the law. That's not fair. That's a huge bias. There's ways to tackle it. Again, I go through that in another video on how I tackle it, and most specifically in front of a jury. But you can deal with it with the adjuster as well when you have an attorney that can handle these cases. That is a big issue. Bias. Now, the last reason to hire a motorcycle accident trial lawyer is going to be that, believe it or not, no matter the scenario, I'm telling you, it is insane how I get it in every single motorcycle accident case. They're going to blame you. They're going to blame the motorcycle rider. It is without fail. I have a case right now in Savannah, Georgia. Couple riding their motorcycle with another rider, middle of the day. He is a military, now veteran. He was working for the Army at the time. He had served his country for over 20 years. He was a sergeant, really good guy. He was part of the motorcycle safety group through the Army base that he was at to train other soldiers that ride motorcycles how to be safe, super safe rider. And this lady, as many of you know, it's the number one cause, pulls left out through some traffic. Our guy's coming straight, pulls out right as he gets up on her, wasn't paying attention, and our motorcycle rear ends the car. Witnesses saying she's totally at fault. She just jumped right out in front of him. Police officer cited this woman as being at fault, gave her a ticket. Guess what? Oh, Ted, the motorcycle rider's at fault. He's speeding. He was doing something. I mean, they came up with everything. We're in a lawsuit. They're still denying negligence, liability. They're saying not liable. She paid the ticket, for God's sakes. So we get this in every single case. You're going to fight this. Why? Because it backs up to that other reason, the bias. They're using the bias of motorcycles. You're taking the risk, and you were doing probably something wrong, speeding, not paying attention, you hit them, that sort of thing. So you're going to face an at-fault situation. Hey, we're not going to pay you full value because we believe you share in fault. They'll do it in every single case. You've got to know how to handle that. Attorneys, trial lawyers, where the adjuster knows this is a motorcycle trial lawyer. We've seen his other results. We've dealt with him before on these cases. We know he knows his stuff. That is what is going to get past all of these issues, bias, you're at fault, all of it, in order to pursue your case. So these are the 6 reasons I believe you should always hire a motorcycle accident trial lawyer if you go down because of the negligence of someone else. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it. Also, comments. I would love to hear from you after watching this video. If you have any thoughts on this subject matter or any others, thank you so much for watching.